all right. Make sure everything's working right. Looks like it is. All right. So, just want to talk to you a little about myself, what drives me. This is what drives me. People talk about things that they would want, right? There's a whole lot of things you can want. Love, even material things, a nice environment, right? It's based on peace and love. Obviously, this is what everybody wants. Everybody says this. So I'm not any different than anybody else. However, I will say that we can do better. All right. We can do a lot better. And I'm really happy to say that a lot of these things that have been going on the past couple of years have been doing what? Open people's eyes. That's really important. All right, all right. And we need to keep up with that. Now, a lot has been said about the power of the people. And it seems to me that, I don't know, sometimes I don't think that that is taken seriously, and we need to do better. We need to raise our game. Look, we can point our fingers at these motherfuckers and say, you supposed to do this, you supposed to do that. Look, they're not supposed to do anything, okay? What they're supposed to do is sign the contract and complete the transaction. Right? That's what they're supposed to do. Period. End of story. You not paying them is the point, right? Well, our tax dollars, your tax dollars are getting used and abused. It's an abuse fest, folks, right? This is why the left and the right need to unite. We need to get our heads up out of all of our asses. Feel me? Because we got to make this happen. This is just not going to work. And I tell you this, I know for sure. I know for sure in the first place, we're not actually that divided. Man, the news, the media stuff, it has potential to just, that's their whole job, right? That is their whole entire job in the media is to fuck with you. Am I telling a lie? You know, sometimes I can't. I get a little frustrated sometimes because I do hear a lot of the folks that I learned from complain about what the New York Times has to say. And, in terms of, say, if you're a person whose job it is to go find some stuff out, you will just completely, and you should disregard New York Times. You know, whatever they have to say doesn't even account. Why? Because if your job is to learn, then you go to people or you pay people to tell you stuff or to go find out stuff or to support their journalism. And there's a lot of that going on, right? A lot of people are tired of the mainstream because they realize that they're being lied to about everything, and then they go find some other people to learn some stuff from. In other words, at the end of the day, look, if you want to know something, then you gotta go work for it and go learn it. There's no other way around it, right? Famous guy once said, "Seek knowledge." Gotta seek it, because if you're just gonna turn on the TV and listen to these people who owe you nothing, you don't know anything. And that's why I say, you know, ignorance. It's not because, you're trying. If you turn on CNN and you listen to them, right, and you take them seriously, right, that's on you because they just kind of made a fool out of you. They're like behind your back. But when you grow up in a world where everyone just assumes that their job, they're the real journalists, well, it's hard to get your head around that. That whole thing is just, that whole thing is bullshit. It's just 100% bullshit. Doesn't matter what subject it is that they're talking about. It's I'll say, because it's 90%, there may be 10%. Like, you can always learn something from somewhere, right? Of course you can. But if you really want to know stuff, you'll go beyond CNN and put it in your own hands. Okay. So the point here I'm trying to make is as far as part of the power equation being knowledge. Knowledge is something that you have to go seek. There's no other way around it, right? And in that vein, there's two dimensions of knowledge too on top of that, which are really important because they work hand in hand. Let me explain, because this is really important, right? Uh, there's a I believe a proportional relationship between the knowledge that you learn about yourself inside and the knowledge that you learn about the world outside you. And one of the ways that that's really important is because those folks, right, those people that we call the elite and up, the high bank. Look, folks, when it comes to that stuff, they got levels on this stuff you don't even know about, right? I mean, everybody knows about the ones out of the UK. I'm not going to say a name because probably AI is listening, but you take them and then there's up above that, right? And we have a little bit of insight as to what that looks like, for sure, for sure. um Anyhow, these people know all of this stuff. They know all this, so we got to raise our level to their game. All right. So what I'm going to talk about is not no religion. Okay. It's the way the universe works, and I'm going to say this over and over again. The universe works in a certain way. Okay. A lot of people call it universal law, but it's compatible with just about every religion. Why? Because that's the way it works, right? It's not nobody's opinion. Now, you can say opinion on interpretations, but there's some basic fundamental shit. Okay, I'm gonna call it axiomatic. Okay. Let me start out with the ones that impressed me first when I was probably a kid. I remember the one in sixth grade hit me like a ton of bricks. Plato said, "Know thyself." I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds important. Shit. I was like, wow. And that has to do with power, right? And in this aspect, it has to do with the knowledge factor of power, right? And then he went to the inside. See? Smart man. Power. Because look, when you do have power, you can put that in to work in any way you want to. This is when your light is bright. This is when you're more connected. You're in knowledge. And as far as the other part, as far as love is concerned, oh boy, that's a tough one for people to wrap their heads around because, when I say love, right, and people will agree, who's not going to agree? Love is God. God is love. Now, you can get a little bit more into all these different aspects of, say, love. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's really something that we can really wrap our heads around. It's a big topic. Our little pea brains really aren't going to be able to process whatever it is that made all this shit. Okay? It's just not going to happen. However, with that said, there's some basic fundamental facts. Okay? We are part of it, clearly, right? And the link up to that is consciousness, right? Consciousness. This is not my opinion. I understand. And a lot of y'all already know this. So I'm just laying it out the way it is, okay? Because if we're going to make this work, we got to be on strong foundation. and I'm laying a foundation based on universal law, universal principles. You understand me? Okay, so with that said, right, we are accountable for our own paths. Because if you want something, then you make it happen and you go do it. We haven't been doing that. There's a part of this that's going to have to be about self reflection, right? Choices that we made, right? Did we pay attention? Probably not. Did we just join a tribe and figure our tribe was going to fix everything? What does that do? Oh, that separates me from my neighbor. Oh, now it's about ego. Oh. And then things just get like cultural. And these politicians and people behind them, they know how to play that shit. They know how to fuck with us. And it's a choice to go along and play that game or not. Just think, guys. Take past 20 years, what would it be like if the news organizations all of a sudden decide, nope, we're not going to take your money to fuck with people. No, we're not going to work any more government agencies to manufacture consent. No, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to tell the people what we think they should know. That's a joke, right? Right. That never happened. The biggest nut in the world for the elites is the consciousness of the masses. That is the biggest nut. That's where all the energy is. That's where all the spiritual energy is. That's where all the physical energy is. Just throw these pigs some slop, drain their energy. That's the situation. And to let your energy be drained is a choice. This is all that philosophical shit you be hearing about free will. Free will. Well, this is the application, the biggest application of said topic right now on the planet. Are we going to do it or aren't we going to do it? We're free to do it. Just got to say, hey, let's do it. And so rather than just talk shit up here, what I decided to do is do a little campaign. My Looks like my YouTube thing went down for some reason, so I might have to reconnect over here. I'm gonna post this.
I said no tomfoolery. No, you didn't.
I streaming again already? All right, we're going back live again on YouTube. Post later to TikTok. TikTok. That's so funny to me. I used to think TikTok was like the stupidest, silliest thing I ever heard of. Never in the world. I'd have thought I'd been up here posting on TikTok, but it is a really good platform. It's pretty impressive when I looked into it. If you want to get your message out, if you want to get a word out, if you want to make some money, sell some stuff, hell yeah, TikTok shop, and all that stuff. So where I was about some self-reflection, it's all on us. It's all our job, right? There's a lot to this, folks, and a lot of people are on their own path in terms of learning some stuff, right? Doesn't mean anybody's better than anybody else, but everybody's on their own path of realizing that we're all realizing in our own way that everything is a lie. Okay? And if that's the case, well, yeah, that's a problem. If you respect yourself, why are you gonna let somebody treat you like that? That's just the end of the day. This comes down as simple as you're in a bad relationship. Do you love yourself enough to get out of the relationship? This is exactly what that is. Okay? This is one of the reasons why they call it Stockholm syndrome. Right? There's a lot of truth to that. We get attached to our abusers. The question is, do we love ourselves enough, okay, to walk away from the abuse? Bang. It's that simple. Am I saying something crazy? You let me know. Is that nuts? Nope. Sounds spot on to me. Yeah, of course it's spot on, because that's what's happening. we are accepting the abuse. Well, I'm not accepting the abuse. Look, collectively we are. We are. And if you don't want to, then I think it'd be better off starting to get creative and for real instead of, hey, there's a lot of good work out there that illustrates the abuse. It's like, you're being abused, you're being abused, you're being abused, you're being abused. That's all it is. And it's true. It's like, okay, I appreciate it, but now what? What's the next step? Right? Well, if you look at it in this frame, because it is applicable in this frame. Look, there's this, I don't know, but I'm not saying I made up the concept because it's an obvious one. It has to already exist about an analysis of relationships, okay, between individuals, and then also say small groups of individuals versus large groups of individuals. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Right. So I'm sure some of you psychologists, therapists, sociologists have something to say about that. Okay, but beyond that, my point is that is what this situation is. And the people who are abusing you are basically sucking your energy. There's a lot of relationships between energy vampires, narcissists, evil. Okay, this is kind of, when we look at things like narcissism, evil, you know, they're very much related. Okay, that just makes sense, right? So, my point being, are you saying narcissists are evil? See, it's more complicated than that. If you're just looking at throwing some words around like that at people, I'm just not interested. These things are very nuanced, and I'm not going around and saying, I'll have an analysis. If I think there's an evil aspect involved, I'll call it out and back it up. But a lot of times people just want to get upset with you for saying something mean. It's so childish sometimes. You know what I mean? One of the important lessons that I learned a long time ago is that if you get so disturbed by what other people have to say about you, then it really is your problem. Because what you're doing when you do that, you get upset, is you're giving that person the power over you, right? Because now they know they got you. I want to fuck with him, I'll do it this way. And you go, that's your fault. If another person's words gets to you, it really is on you. This is specifically why all that Marxist stuff is evil. What it is, it's people who have chosen the left-hand path. They know what they're doing. They're very good at it. I see them. A lot of you see them too. They're very good at it. If you don't know, they got their evil ways. Look, right? Everybody's been warning us about them. Presidents, biblical figures, they're right there and they got their ways. One of the ways that they got is specifically to make you feel that someone else is responsible for your happiness. That's called giving away your power. So if you can blame somebody, see, more into that, more specifically, if you spend energy on that, then that energy isn't being spent on being creative. Well, I spend energy on being creative. I don't know. Seems like, well, I'm not going to get into all that creativity stuff right now, but it happens to be that is evil. That's why all the Satanists and stuff are doing it, because this is their thing. These are their tools to suck your energy out of you. You keep you in a little boiling pot. Take the pot off the lid off the pot, they hear all them screams. All that energy getting loose. Got to boil it up, because what they can do with that energy is stuff that they don't want to tell you about. Okay, and that's where we get into, you know, the occult stuff. That stuff is real. This is a spiritual war. It's spiritual war. And I'm basically calling on everybody who knows exactly what I'm talking about. We know this, right? Look, those of you who are resonating with what I'm saying, a lot of times we tend to spend a lot of energy on convincing other people. I understand that. I do the same thing. But, as I told you before, my working model for this has to be with narcissistic relationships. I gotta have a base, a direction for what I'm dealing with. So, in that model, it is very well understood that when you find yourself in a narcissistic relationship, what they tell you to do, they tell you to run, right? Because there's nothing you can do for them. Nothing you can do. But so many of us spend our time like, I see these videos of people making reasonable comments, right? Why doesn't the government do this? And shouldn't they be doing that? No, the question is, what are you gonna do about it? That's the real question. What are you gonna do about it? Right now, it looks to them, you ain't gonna do shit. Right? And that's exactly why right now, they're doing what the fuck they wanna do. Right? You get in there, somebody trying to stop it, they'd be like, get out of here. Get out of here. We got this. These people don't know what's going on. We got them fighting about, I don't know, some kind of bullshit. They got people freaking out about Trump. Oh my God. In the meanwhile, the most heinous. Yeah, they do a good job at that whole game of keeping people distracted on some bullshit, man. Kudos to them, really, at the end of the day. I gotta be honest with you. I do have a thing in me about respecting your, what do you call it? Respecting your enemy. I think you really do have to respect your enemy. Yeah, I know who your enemy is, right? The left winger in me, feeling the punk rock vibe in the 80s, the anti establishment shit, right? Well, clearly, in the 80s, there was a big, feeling of taking down the establishment, fuck the institutions, all that stuff, punk rock based stuff. You know, remember that band Consolidated? Anybody remember that? Probably not. A couple of y'all do, maybe a couple of y'all do remember Consolidated. They came through here. Anyhow, that's where I'm coming from. But I'm not gonna just stop there and take down the institutions. I gotta know what I'm talking about, right? Who are these people? What is their game? I gotta know. I'm not gonna just like be in their world and not. It's because of a sense of pride, I guess you could say, right? I'm just gonna live this life and die and not know what the hell that was. Like, what was that? How'd they get there? Who's in control? Whatever it is. That's all like basic stuff. What is this? And if you do enough digging, you kind of find out some really interesting shit. You know, at least that's what happens to people that actually look. And people that actually look, we find out the same stuff. It's really, really interesting. You know, and as I say in a lot of my videos, I like that, for me, it was remote viewing also. That, I gotta admit, that probably was for me the biggest the biggest thing for me that made me really start to go into consciousness understanding was that. That's what that was. Because let me tell you, I had some experiences with remote viewing that freaked me out. Like, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, okay, I get it now. This is for real. And if you look into how the government was doing all these programs, and then you realize, oh, there's a whole industry of stuff based on this. No, not just the. Well, they are related. Oh yeah, they're related. There's a whole industry going on underneath of us that's all about this, and it's good. I gotta say, they had done a really good job at taking their understanding of it from the Germans, really developing, actually from Europeans. Back then, I guess in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was a big interest in mind body stuff. There's a lot of that. Uh, what's the guy, the Oregon guy? He's pretty interesting too. And then you got the fact that both, what's his name, Edgar, whatever it is, Freud's nephew. Anyhow, there was a lot of different people back then doing some stuff. I recently learned about another guy from Matthias Desmond. Okay, I'm getting too academic there. Excuse me. Let me back up and just stick to the fucking basics, okay? But the point is, they got literature on this stuff. This is a well-established field. How to fuck with people. That's what it comes down to. You want to look up something you right now? Go on YouTube or Amazon and get a book on dark psychology. Read it. Go right now. maybe I'll put a link to that book. But if you once you read it, you'll be like, that's what they're doing. Yeah, duh. Right in our faces. Psyops. Really, the whole world is an actual psyop. That is not a lie. That is not an exaggeration at all. The Matrix holds itself together on a psyop. And when you find all that stuff out, realize, you're so far into the psyop, how you gonna pull yourself out? Look, me, I may say I'm out of the Matrix, but yet look at me. I'm fucking connected into the Matrix, right? But I have a will not to wanna be. And with this internet shit, I think I got a way that we can make this happen. Okay? What am I talking about? Look, folks, we need to self-reflect and realize we've allowed these media motherfuckers to fuck with us. I think that's actually step one. Admit you got a problem. Yeah, we probably did let those motherfuckers in our heads too much and keep us ignorant and divided. Yeah, we probably did. Hey, guilty as charged. Everybody's on their own path. No, I can feel you. It feels like it's real, right? Feels like it's real. It's kind of exciting, kind of scary. The terrorists, the criminals, war, oh, the virus. These guys are so good at what they do. It's sad. There's a conspiracy. Yes, there's a conspiracy to fuck with you. Yes, there is. Okay. There's a whole industry based on all this. If you don't know about it, go look it up. But the point is, it's frustrating for me because and it's true, just like with these narcissistic women. By the way, that's how I started to understand psychology. Because I dated a 100% narcissistic personality disorder person. And, glad I did. Glad I did because I learned a lot about psychology. And more importantly, I learned a lot about myself. That was huge. And she knows. I thank her all the time. Thank you so much for coming around and slapping me upside the head. Because that was definitely the slapping upside the head I needed. I'll take that one. It was worth it. Wish I could have got out of that better. One day I looked it up. Like, hey, this, I heard of personality disorder. Is this what that is? That's basically how that went. I started Googling. I was like, motherfucker, this bitch is actual crazy. That was so funny. But I love her to death. She means well. That's the thing with these. When I was learning about this, I came across Dr. Phil. I wanted to hear what he had to say about it. I'm beginning to hate Dr. Phil. Oh, whatever. Uh, what he had to say was really important because it was based in love. So I was like, yeah, boy, that's exactly right. His point was, and see, this is part of the lesson for me. The point is to have empathy for those people. Those people did not ask for what they went through to make them that way. Now you can talk about, but that's a whole debatable thing. I understand the arguments, but at the end of the day, they don't want to be that way. It, they don't want to be that way. If they could push the button to make that go away, they'd fucking push it in a heartbeat. In other words, they don't. They want to be better, but they just can't. There's something broken in there. Um, and this comes into that whole spiritual thing, but there is, in fact, a spiritual side of these types of problems, mental problems. They work together, they're like reflections of each other. What that is a representation of is a larger type, you know. So some people call them parasites, some people call them archons, just interdimensional entities. These things are real. Okay, they're real. You can't handle it. That's just the way this part up, the way the world operates. I didn't make it up. You know, go look into it. If you're not comfortable with that, but it happens to be the case. So, do you understand why I'm saying narcissism and relating that to psychology and spirituality? Just kind of laying out some of the basics of the stuff that we're not taught.
Shine, shine, shine.
다름이 왕의 피스 우리도 달라 서있는 위치 그러니까 서로가 더 외면하는 길보다 먼저 보고 알아가는 게 더 빠르지 틀린 건 없지 절대 사람들은 누구나 실수해 완벽함은 혼자가 아닌 너 내가 이해하고 맞출 때 가끔 목적지 right. Make sure everything's working.
Everything's always good. Alright. You got anybody listening to my bullshit? Hey, nobody listening to my bullshit. That's okay. I don't mind. So once again, guys, I'm over here on YouTube going live. You can find me at Techno Dancer _ME. Techno Dancer. I should figure out how to display that. I'll put that in the description. That's right. Get me over here on my live stream and let's talk about what we're going to do to actually save the world. Now, I know this doesn't sound possible, but it is. And we're going to talk about what needs to be done to make that happen. Okay? Because we can do this and we are going to do it. And this is how we're going to do it.
So once again, right? Looks like it is. All right. So
Okay, so, all right, where am I at? I'm doing so many things at one time. It's getting stupid. I'm going to end this stream and why would I do that though? I guess for content, right? Yeah. To break it up. It's a good idea to break shit up.